4.3 million engines recalled since 2015. And right now, in 2026, 97% of new cars on dealer lots are running the exact engine type responsible for most of those failures. Most owners found out the hard way. No warning, no strange noise, just a repair bill, or worse, an engine that quit on the highway. Here's what makes this different from every other car video you've seen. We're not guessing. We're pulling NHTSA complaint data, recall records, and Consumer Reports reliability scores. Real numbers, no filler, 5 turbocharged engines you need to avoid, and 2 that have actually earned their reputation and stay for number 1 on the avoid list. Because the brand behind it, it's the last one you'd ever expect. Why turbos fail, the truth nobody tells you. Before we name names, here's the one thing you need to understand, because once this clicks, everything else on this list makes perfect sense. Picture this, a metal turbine, smaller than your fist, spinning at 300,000 revolutions per minute. That's not a typo, 300,000 revolutions per minute, while sitting inside a housing that reaches 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, glowing almost red hot every single time you drive. That turbine has exactly one thing keeping it from destroying itself. Your engine oil, one fluid, one line of defense. That's it. This matters because turbochargers didn't show up in 97% of new cars because engineers suddenly fell in love with them. It happened because of EPA fuel economy mandates. Automakers had to shrink their engines to hit targets on paper, and then bolt a turbo on top to replace the power they lost. The Camry's naturally aspirated 2.5 liter, gone. The F-150's V8, replaced. The Silverado's proven 5.3 liter, they tried to swap that out too. Same horsepower on the window sticker, completely different engine underneath. Some manufacturers engineered around the turbo's weaknesses brilliantly, others cut corners. And the gap between those two groups is exactly what this video is about. 3 specific ways a turbo engine dies on you. Heat damage. When you park immediately after hard driving, the oil pump stops, but the turbo keeps cooking. Oil bakes inside the bearing housing and builds up silently until the bearing starts failing. You don't know it's happening. Failure point 2. Oil starvation. One missed oil change at the wrong time is enough. Turbo rebuild specialists say this is the single biggest cause of turbo failure across every brand. Not age, not mileage, oil. Failure point 3, carbon buildup. Modern turbocharged engines use direct injection, which means fuel bypasses the intake valves entirely. Carbon bakes onto those valves over time, and some owners are dealing with an expensive cleaning procedure before 60,000 miles. 3 failure points, all preventable if the manufacturer engineered the engine properly. Not all of them did, but here's what almost nobody talks about. One of the engines on this list created a risk far worse than a repair bill. We'll get there. Let's start the countdown. GM 2.7 liter Turbo Max, start with the repair bill. $8,000 to $11,000 for a short block replacement on a truck you bought for $60,000. That's where several Silverado and Sierra owners ended up. And their trucks weren't even close to high mileage when it happened. The engine is GM's 2.7 liter Turbo Max, and it replaced the legendary 5.3 liter V8 that had been powering Silverados and Sierras reliably for decades. Let that land. GM took one of the most trusted truck engines in American history, and engine owners routinely drove past 200,000 miles without major issues, and swapped it out for a turbocharged 4-cylinder that's been in production for 3 years. NHTSA complaint data documents oil consumption of 1 quart every 1,000 miles. A healthy engine should consume virtually nothing between oil changes. 1 quart per 1,000 miles means that turbo bearing, the single most vulnerable component in the engine, is running low on the only thing keeping it alive. And here's the brutal part. The owner may not realize anything is wrong until the low oil pressure warning fires, or until it doesn't fire in time. Consumer Reports flags this engine below average for reliability. And the most alarming detail isn't even the consumption numbers, it's the uncertainty. There is no long-term data at 150,000 or 200,000 miles. Nobody knows how this engine holds up under real truck use at high mileage. You're not buying a proven engine, you're funding the experiment. Congratulations, you just paid $60,000 to become GM's long-term durability tester. When the proven 5.3 liter V8 is sitting right there as an option, there's no rational argument for choosing the unproven alternative alternative in a truck that's going to see real work. If you want a Silverado or Sierra, spend the extra money. Get the V8. Don't gamble. And if you think burning a quart of oil every 1,000 miles sounds bad, the next engine on this list didn't just drain your oil. In some cases, it drained people's sense of safety entirely. Hyundai/Kia 1.6-liter Gamma Turbo. Picture this. You're driving home from work on a Tuesday night. Nothing unusual, no warning lights, no strange sounds. Then you notice a smell. Faint at first, then stronger, and there's smoke rising from under the hood. That's not a hypothetical, that's a pattern NHTSA, documented across hundreds of complaints before this engine was recalled. The 1.6-liter Gamma Turbo appeared in the Hyundai Elantra, Veloster, Tucson, Kia Forte, and Soul during one of the biggest sales growth periods either brand had seen. Affordable cars, practical cars, cars people trusted. The engine had a problem those owners never saw coming. Piston ring failures causing excessive oil consumption across 2013 through 2019 model years. Oil entered the combustion chamber, built up in the exhaust system, and under the right conditions, it ignited. A class action lawsuit followed. NHTSA received 232 complaints before the recall moved. Fire risk, not a check engine light, not a repair bill, a fire risk. Would you still get into one of these cars if the dealership hadn't disclosed this? Most buyers did, but because nobody told them. If any Hyundai or Kia from 2013 to 2019 is on your used car shortlist, run the VIN through the NHTSA recall database before you hand anyone $1. The link is in the description. Free, 2 minutes, non-negotiable. But the next engine? This one surprised us most when we were putting this list together, and because it's in a brand that's supposed to be engineered better than everyone else. Volkswagen/Audi EA888 2.0-liter turbo. That's Consumer Reports powertrain reliability rating for Volkswagen. Not 2 out of 10, 2 out of 5. One of the lowest scores in the entire industry for a brand that charges you a premium specifically because it's supposed to be engineered to a higher standard. The engine behind that rating, the EA888 2.0-liter turbo. It powers virtually the entire VW and Audi US lineup. The Jetta, the Tiggan, the Golf, the Audi A4, the Audi Q5, millions of vehicles, same fundamental architecture underneath every single one, and the documented failure list reads like a parts department wish list. Timing chain failures, high pressure fuel pump failures, carbon buildup on intake valves so severe that some owners are paying for a professional walnut blasting procedure before the odometer hits 60,000 miles. A class action lawsuit was filed specifically over the timing chain tensioner in the 2.0 TFSI variant. When that tensioner fails, you don't get a warning. You get catastrophic engine damage. Here's the thing that actually gets people though. The EA888 can hold up if it's been maintained with religious precision. Oil changes on schedule, documented service history, lower mileage. The engineering is capable of lasting. That's a fact. But here's the question you need to ask yourself honestly. In the used car market, how often do you actually find a complete gap-free service history? Gaps are the rule, not the exception, and a gap in the EA888's maintenance history isn't a minor concern. It's the difference between a reliable car and an expensive problem you just paid someone else to create. Before we get to the final 2 engines on the avoid list, here's something that reframed how we ranked this entire video. The number 1 engine on this list triggered over 3,000 NHTSA complaints, and it came from a brand that spent 50 years building a reputation as the safest bet in the industry. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now, because this is the kind of research dealerships hope stays buried. Back to the list. Ford 1.5-liter EcoBoost 3-cylinder. Here's a repair estimate before we even name the engine. $4,000 to $7,000. Engine replacement on a car that was designed to be affordable transportation. The Ford 1.5-liter EcoBoost 3-cylinder sits in the Escape, the Fusion, and the Bronco Sport, and it has a defect that isn't vague or complicated. Engine coolant enters the cylinders. Coolant, a liquid, gets into the combustion chamber where only air and fuel are supposed to be. The engine can hydrolock, lock up mechanically, and stall, including at highway speed. Several owners have described the same sequence of events. Driving normally, no warning, then a sudden violent shudder, and the engine goes silent at 70 miles per hour on the interstate. What happens next depends entirely on where you are in traffic, and in the most serious documented cases, coolant contacting hot exhaust components created a fire risk. Class action lawsuits were filed. The 2015 through 2018 model years are the most most heavily affected. Ford issued technical service bulletins, but the underlying engineering problem in these engines wasn't fixable with a software patch. If a used Escape, Fusion, or Bronco Sport with the 1.5 liter is on your list, ask specifically about the coolant issue. Pull the VIN. If there's no documentation of the recall being addressed, walk away. This isn't depreciation math. This is whether your engine quits while you're doing 70 miles per hour with your family in the car. That's only half the story though, because the engine sitting at number 1 on this list, it carries a badge that's supposed to mean this could never happen to you. Toyota 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. We need to say something clearly before we get into this. This is not an attack on Toyota. Toyota as a company builds some of the most reliable vehicles on the road. The Camry, the Tacoma, the 4Runner. Decades of data back that up, and they will almost certainly fix what we're about to describe. But right now, the data on this specific engine is impossible to ignore. In November 2024, Toyota recalled 105,000 vehicles. Low oil pressure warnings, tied directly to this engine. Then, 30 days later, before the ink was even dry on the first recall, Toyota issued a second recall. 127,000 Tundras and Lexus LX SUVs crankshaft bearing failure risk. Let that sink in. 2 separate recalls, 232,000 vehicles, 60 days. A crankshaft bearing failure is not a check engine light. The crankshaft is the backbone of your engine. When the bearing that supports it fails, you're not looking at a repair. You're looking at an engine that can stop working, potentially without warning, whenever it decides to go. NHTSA currently has over 3,000 complaints on file for this engine family. That number does not represent a handful of edge cases. That is a pattern. Would you still buy a Tundra or a Lexus LX today knowing this? That's not a rhetorical question. Drop your honest answer in the comments, because a lot of buyers are walking into dealerships right now with Toyota's reliability reputation in their head, and this specific engine sitting under the hood of the truck they're about to sign for. The Toyota badge is real. The reputation is real. But neither one protects you from this engine right now. The data says stay away until this track record is rebuilt. Check the VIN. Ask specifically about this engine family. Don't assume the name equals safety on this one. The two that actually earned it. That was the bad news. And it was real. But here's something refreshing. 2 turbocharged engines have done everything right, and they've got the data to prove it. BMW B58 3.0-liter inline 6 turbo. Most people don't know this, so here it is. The engine sitting under the hood of the Toyota GR Supra is a BMW engine. BMW makes it. Toyota puts their badge on it, and it's the same fundamental unit powering the BMW 3 Series, 5 Series, X3, and X5. Virtually zero significant recalls. Virtually no NHTSA complaints at scale. Consumer Reports consistently ranks the B58 as one of the most reliable modern turbocharged engines available anywhere. Owner surveys at 100,000, 120,000, 150,000 miles back that up. This engine has been tested in the real world, at real mileage across multiple years. It is genuinely proven. The honest caveat, BMWs cost more to own. Parts cost more. Labor costs more. Maintenance is more expensive. That's simply the reality of the brand, and you need to go in with your eyes open. But the engine itself, the actual engineering underneath the BMW badge, is one of the safest turbocharged powertrains available right now. Honda 1.5-liter VTEC Turbo. This one you can get into for under $28,000. Civic CR-V HR-V. Consumer Reports rates Honda above average for reliability, and the 1.5-liter VTEC Turbo is a significant reason why. Real-world high-mileage data, real owners, numbers that hold up over time. One known issue worth being straight about: in cold climates, some 2016 through 2018 owners reported gasoline diluting into the engine oil during short trip cold weather driving. Honda addressed it with software updates. On 2019 and newer models, it's largely a non-issue. If you're in Texas, Florida, or Arizona, don't even worry about it. If you're in Minnesota or upstate New York, buy 2019 or newer and you're covered. For the money, for the data, for long-term ownership cost, the Honda 1.5-liter in a 2019 or newer model is the best value turbocharged engine available in an affordable car right now. It's not even close. How to protect the turbo engine. You already own maybe one of the engines on the avoid list is sitting in your driveway. Maybe you're keeping it. That's okay. Here's what actually separates a turbo engine that lasts 200,000 miles from one that hands you a $6,000 bill at 80,000. Never skip an oil change. On a turbocharged engine, this is not a suggestion. That turbo bearing, the component we've been talking about all video, lives and dies by oil quality. Use the manufacturer specified grade. Change it on schedule. Every time. The oil change you push off by 500 miles because you're busy. That's the one that matters. Let the engine cool before you shut it off. After highway driving, hard acceleration, or towing, let the car idle for 2 to 3 minutes before you kill the ignition. The oil pump stays on. The turbo bearing keeps getting lubrication while it cools down. It costs you 3 minutes. It can add years to the turbo's life. Check your oil level every few weeks, not just at oil changes. If the engine is consuming oil even a little, you need to catch it early. Turbocharged engines punish oil starvation faster and more severely than naturally aspirated engines. Don't find out you have a consumption issue after the damage is already done. Run the VIN before you buy anything used. NHTSA's recall database is free, 2 minutes. It shows every open recall on any vehicle you're considering and whether it's been resolved. An unresolved recall on an engine with a documented failure pattern is not a negotiating tool. It's a reason to walk. These steps aren't complicated, but the difference between following them and skipping them is the difference between a turbo engine that serves you for the long haul and a catastrophic repair bill you never saw coming. So here's the real answer to the question everyone's asking in 2026. Are turbo engines reliable? Some of them absolutely. The BMW B58 and Honda's 1.5-liter VTEC turbo earned that answer. Real data, real mileage, real owners. But turbocharged engines as a category run hotter, demand more from you on maintenance, and punish mistakes far less forgivably than a naturally aspirated engine. The brand name on the hood is not a shield. 4.3 million engines recalled since 2015, 232,000 Toyota and Lexus vehicles recalled in a single 60-day window, 18 car models lost their Consumer Reports recommendation recently, and turbo reliability is at the center of most of it. And here's the thing that should stay with you after this video ends. Bad engines don't care about brand loyalty. They don't care what your parents drove. They don't care how much you paid or how trusted the name on the grill has been for 50 years. They only care whether the engineering was done right and whether you maintained them properly. Now you know which ones were done right and which ones weren't. Drop your car in the comments, turbo or naturally aspirated. What are you driving? Well, and after watching this, would you still buy it? I want to know. If this research helped you, hit that subscribe button. We're building toward 100,000 subscribers, and this community is why we keep digging.